And now, the survival show that once survived being told to clean its room 3 times. In this episode, James Price is back with life lessons, one skill at a time, that may actually save your life. Howdy and welcome to In the Rabbit Hole's Urban Survival Podcast. This is episode number 210. I'm your host, Aaron, and you are in the rabbit hole, safe and sound. James, welcome back to In the Rabbit Hole. Man, you've been off doing stuff in far off places, and we haven't gotten to chat or hang out in quite a while. It's good to get a chance to get caught up with you.
Yeah, I've been trying to jump on back for another episode so I can maintain my status as the number one downloaded podcast in the rabbit hole. So I figure I needed some new content to keep my reigning championship belt.
There you go. We need to send you a rabbit hole crown for that one.
Or I'm old school, man. I like the wrestler belt style, you know.
Oh, there you go. We can make that happen. We have the technology. I know of a costume shop somewhere.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
There we go.
So so we're going to talk today about, I think usually people expect us to talk about tactical stuff, and I think we are going to get into some of that. But today we're going to talk more about all the other skills that actually would save your life in a shit hit the fan situation. So lay it on us, man. What do you got for us today?
Yeah, recently I've been doing a lot of training of passive team members. For those of y'all who don't know, I'm the founder and director of a small humanitarian aid organization called HACCP, Humanitarian Aid Security Forces, and we provide armed humanitarian aid assistance to people in the world's most dangerous places. And over the past year, we've had a lot of people saying that they want to come and work with us and go on missions. And now I've been able to make a little bit of time for myself and the team and have some people come in. And I have people come through a 6-day-long training and evaluation period where I put them in a lot of tough situations and give them a lot of new information and see how they run with it. And a lot of the things that are coming out that I feel affect the hard skills. So there's hard skills and soft skills. The hard skills are shooting your gun or kicking down the door of a building. The soft skills are more the thinking skills, the skills of knowing how to do other things. And the unique thing about PSD work and especially the kind that we're doing in aid work is you got to use both of those skills, but you preferably want to use the soft skills. The soft skills are the ones that prevent you from getting in the situation where you're shooting and other things like that, which is not where you want to be ever. Because if people start shooting, somebody's going to get shot.
Yeah.
And you only get so many of those 9 lives before your ticket gets cashed in. So training these guys, I've noticed that there are underlying issues causing them not to be good at hard skills. And they're usually not the things that you'll think of them. We've touched on it before on one of the other podcasts I was on where I was talking about, take an improv comedy class or do a Toastmasters.
Mm-hmm.
And those still are very, very much something that I consider important skills. People who are very good at the hard skills are lacking. We always used to joke around. It's like, what is it as former special forces guy doing right now in the States? It's working at Home Depot because, they have a great skill set, no people skills at all. And which in fact, Home Depot is one of the largest employers of former Navy SEALs. So
that's interesting. I didn't know that.
So I'd like to go over some of my notes that I've been taking while I'm training these guys and just give suggestions to people that if you work on these soft skills, they will improve your hard skills exponentially.
Awesome.
Let's go ahead and touch on social skills since I already spoke about that for a second. If you think about it, unless you're Chuck Norris, the lone wolf or whatever in the Expendables, you're going to be working with people, whether you're pulling triggers with people or protecting people with people, or you're with just other people that you don't know. Knowing how to get along with other people is extremely important because it goes to communications, which is another thing I'm going to touch on. But one of the biggest issues I see with people who are very good at hard skills but have reached this plateau that they don't get over, they like to debate a lot. which I think this is also a youthful thing, but I see it in adults also. And debate when there's no what I call net gain. It's like, okay, there's a lot of subjects I can talk about, but let me debate people all night long and all day long over things that aren't important.
Mm-hmm.
And what I ask is when you do that, I mean, what is your net gain from it? You got someone with you that you can either be friends with or you can learn from or even have a business connection or social connection with. But instead you decide to make yourself the guy that annoys them. And when you're in that situation, and then especially if you're in a shit it hits a fan situation, now you got the guy, you got to try to work and protect people or protect yourself or defend yourself. And they're doing it with a guy who annoys them. That's always going to be in the back of their head. And I've noticed that people who just constantly have to argue and debate and I got to be right no matter what, those guys do poorly with any sort of team tactics, team training, any sort of hard skill where you have to cooperate with people. They may be great at everything else, but if they do not have that soft skill of simply being able to get along with people and saying, okay, let me pick a subject, let me think and pick a subject and let's talk about something that we agree with or something that we won't debate with, instead of immediately trying to bait people and then spending 5 hours just going at it with someone. It's unnecessary. It causes in your personal life tons of missed opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
I know that myself because I made a grand total of like $400 from the time I was 18 to 25. And that's really the way I was. So I see this from my personal life. But good thing is you can work on it.
Yeah. And to your point, I know somebody literally in the last week, I know somebody that in part because they couldn't shut their mouth, lost a 6-figure deal like that because they couldn't just leave something alone that had nothing to do with what was going on.
Sure. And what was the net gain from that? It's ego.
Yeah.
It's ego. And it's not only will cause you to have problems within your personal and professional life, if something ever happens and you need to work with people to protect yourself or your family, then it also affects that substantially. From this training I've been doing, it affects it more than I can even really put into words. It's the moment that someone hears your mouth flapping and the last time you were just debating with them constantly, their mind automatically just shuts off. And it causes issue when you're working together. But you can work on it. Like I said, from a personal standpoint, this is who I used to be. I have to challenge every single person I was with. And my life was not very successful at that time. But some of the things I learned, I took improv comedy class, which was probably the best tactical class I've ever taken in my entire life. It is the most practical class you'll ever take. Yeah. It got me through 1,000 checkpoints in Iraq. It's a very simple rule. There's a lot of things that you can learn from it, but the one I always tell people is yes and. Mm-hmm. If someone says something, yes and. Don't even have to agree. You can agree without disagreeing. It's like, I like tomatoes. Well, I don't like tomatoes because they're blah, blah, blah. So I say, yes, tomatoes are an excellent source for vitamins, and they're very easy to grow in gardens. And I think it's a good chance for people to get some raw vegetables in them, which is definitely good for nutrition. And then you ask more questions about that. So there's yes and then the Johnny Carson technique. Mm-hmm. You agree, and then ask them a question about what they just said. And let me tell you something. People will love you. You'll be the guy everyone wants to be around. And the other thing is, it's like, oh, I have an opinion. For one, no one cares about your opinion. I mean, in all seriousness, you're not important. No one cares about your opinion. That's fine. You can have your opinion. But again, what is your net gain by disagreeing with someone or baiting people? There isn't any. If you want to really do a head first, like especially if you're a guy or maybe you're more conservative or something like that, go like to meetup.com and just find your local Clinton supporters groups or something like that, or a feminist group. Go there and just yes and all day long. It's painful. It's painful for me to yes and a lot of times because I'm like, oh my God, this guy's so wrong. But it's like, even if someone's wrong, what is my net gain in disagreeing with them?
Yeah.
There's no net gain in it. All it does is just make people not like you.
Uh-huh.
You think that it's not important that people don't, if they like you or not. It is important in, of course, the social situations, but I mean, nobody's going to want to watch your back or work with you or even work hard when they have to work with you if you are someone that they dislike. So that is probably the biggest thing that I've seen from this training so far with people, because before I did commercial training classes, which there's a bit of kid gloves going on. That's a client. Want the client to go back. In this case, when I'm training people to go over to Iraq or Honduras or any other hostile environment with me, I'm training them so that they have a base level of skills that we can build on so that when they do go on a mission, I don't get killed because they aren't paying attention.
Mm.
And so my motivation is substantially different, and I really don't cut any slack on this. It's not, I don't care if they're having fun or not. They're here to learn. So I've seen these traits come out a lot that affect the hard skills. And I tell you, just learning how to get along with each other, not making everything a debate, and getting outside of yourself is probably the biggest fault people have. That if they want to be good at tactical skills or survival skills, like one of the big examples is we have a few full-time guys, and I beat that out of day one. Like every 10 seconds when they're talking, I'm like, what are you talking about? Why are you doing? But as I got that out of them, I saw their hard skills and their other soft skills just multiply weekly from it. Because you're taking yourself outside of yourself. You're learning to listen, to be open to learning new things and not to be resistant. I mean, you have that in you from your kid. Your dad says, clean your room. And you're like, clean my room. But then when you get back into clean your room, it's like, Roger that.
Yeah.
And then later it's, hey, load your weapon, do this, do that, learn how to fight. Then it's like, Roger that. And it gets you in a good mindset to be able to learn.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting that you found that it actually improved. That one thing improved. And that makes sense. It's also the amount of time that people spend sharing their opinions with other people about things that other people probably don't care about. Hopefully they're spending that time getting to know the other person better, especially important in a tactical situation. We were talking, and we'll talk a little bit in a bit about just being able to communicate and camaraderie.
Yeah. Well, why don't we jump on that? Communicating. That one.
Yeah, I like this one. I like this one a lot.
This is one of the ones that I've noticed because most of the full-time guys, they don't come from a background quite like myself. And in the field, there were some communication issues. And I've sat down with some other SMEs, guys who are more experienced with me, and I really went over everything. And one of the biggest problems people have is being able to communicate under stress. And even like guys who are former infantry and military, they tend to work in larger groups. But being able to communicate with, when you only have a few people around you, under high stress, under a large amount of noise, is something that people just constantly fail at. It is extreme. It seems to be extremely hard for them to be able to do that, especially when there's gunfire or just loud noises. Or I tell you, stress might as well be a siren in your ears, because your hearing ability and the ability to process that information goes away just from the natural fight and flight instinct. That's when you just go to visual. So during this training, a lot of the exercises, I want people to learn how to, and also see how hard it is to communicate under high stress, high noise, bad comms, things like that. I think it's a lot of it is actually goes along with the original. First thing I talked about is learning how to get along and speak with people and getting outside of yourself. So there's two types of forms of communication. There's information and there's proper speaking to each other. And when you're in a situation where you must convey information immediately and quickly and simply, it's just information. So one good example of this is some departments, I don't know if they do it much anymore, but it used to be big in the 90s. It's kind of team building things. When paintball was really big, police departments and fire departments would do paintball competitions against them, the firefighters versus the cops. And everyone expects the cops just to whoop on the firefighters because, cops carry guns and they're tough guys. The firefighters on almost pretty much every time just destroy the cops. Why are they able to do that when they're not people who carry firearms, when they're not people who are tactical?
And now for a quick break. Listeners, do you get at least $3 a month worth of value out of ITRH? We'd love to give you more. Visit itrh.net to find out about membership benefits. For starters, members get access to every episode ever produced and a monthly virtual conference. That's just for starters. And it's important to note, In the Rabbit Hole is supported nearly entirely by Roving Horde Armada members just like you. That's how we pay the bills, stay on the air, keep the lights on around here. So go to itrh.net to learn how you can become part of the ITRH Roving Horde Armada. Next up, subscribe to the show through your favorite podcast app to make sure you never miss an episode by going to intherabbithole.com/iTunes or intherabbithole.com/Stitcher or intherabbithole.com/iHeartRadio or intherabbithole.com/Google Play. Or if you are one of those weirdos who listen to the show through YouTube, you can go to intherabbithole.com/YouTube because you know what? We support weirdos. However weird you want to be, we're all about that. Now, back to the show.
Why are they able to do that when they're not people who carry firearms, when they're not people who are tactical related? They know how to communicate inside of a building, tons of noise going on, with tons of stress, with simple, quick terms, what to do. Instead of saying, go around the back door when you get there, let me know. So go to the back door, go to the back door, go to the back door. That's another thing. They repeat what they say multiple times. Your ears will hear it the first time. The second time, you're like, whoa, 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 what's going on? The third time, it's like, there's the information. And if you see firefighters, they'll say things over and over again. Go to the back door, go to the back door. So I'm at the back, I'm at the back. They've learned to say things more than once because it processes faster. They also live with each other, which is a big aspect of it.
So that the 3 times thing is really interesting too, because whenever I'm in the copywriting world, like that's always a really big thing. When you're writing ads or you're writing copy, it's always whatever the main point is, you've got to say it 3 times, or whatever the thing you want people to do is, you've got to say it 3 times. There's something about that 3 times, no more, no less. Somehow that's what tends to break through whatever mental barrier we tend to have with the outside world.
Yeah, I think it must be connected to when you're a kid, because my mom always had to tell me to do stuff 3 times. So, I mean, it may be just a habit, like I said, like if you're looking for your keys, don't look left to right, look right to left. Because if you go left to right, you have that habit of skimming from reading. So most of the bad habits we have, bad habits, not really in life, but bad habits that would be related to a stressful situation or tactical situation, are all connected to bad habits that we keep in our normal lives.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of it is just not paying attention, and being able to having someone say something twice really does snap you out, especially under these high stress situations. So you can learn how to gain these skills. Now, unfortunately, most people can't really train constantly with people that they work with in a stressful environment or a tactical environment or anything like that. But what you can do is learn how to communicate information fast, on the move, under stress, while you're tired. Team sports seems to be one of the best ways to learn that. Even just online playing of video games. Some of these video games are really technical. You got to work together with other people. And if you look at the top Battlefield teams, and there's a couple other video games that are real popular with team play. But if you look at those, they aren't saying, hey, I'm going around the back and blah, blah, blah. They say, I'm going to the back, going to the back. Y'all hear me? And then you hear someone say, yeah, I heard you going to the back, going to the back. They'll repeat it. And so you start to learn how to convey information simply, quickly, and so other people who you're relying on understand, which is another part of, if you hear someone, you repeat it back. When I do that anyway, because especially with people's names, I'm terrible with names. Mm-hmm. So someone says, hey, I'm John Smith. I was like, hey, John Smith, how are you doing? I'm James Price. Then before I walk away, I'll be like, nice to meet you, John Smith.
I do that same thing.
It's a way to kind of get it in my head. And that's the same kind of concept, but paintball, there's a bunch of different things. But if you cannot communicate under stress, you are dead in a tactical situation with someone else. Or any emergency situation, you're evacuating your house. You know how many people, like in the mobile scout training that you went to, at least 4 times people have just left a guy standing there and like taken off in the car because they thought we were going to start shooting them with the airsoft guns and just left a member of their team just standing there. Why? Because they don't know how to communicate, because most people either are subordinates, they basically receive information, or they're the boss and the boss said it, you better not F up. So you got to learn how to be able to communicate with people under high stress. Like I said, video games, team sports, those are some of the ways that you can do it. But the 2 things, if you can't get along with people and everyone hates you, you're not going to work well, and you're not going to learn well. And if you cannot tell someone what to do during an emergency, then what are you going to do? Mm-hmm. We always say comms is life. It's one of the big things that we've always said in my business. Comms is life. You do not have comms with people that you work with. You do not have comms with your headquarters. If you cannot convey information, then you're dead.
Yeah. And there's also the move, shoot, communicate. It's there for a reason.
Sure. It's kind of a hard one, too, because guys, especially in the training we do, will be screaming, peel left, go, move. But the problem is, well, they won't say move. They'll say move. Or they say peel left, which is the same mistakes. So to say everything 3 times, the shortest possible way that you can do it. People will hear that.
Is that what ends up happening, is that people are so used to speaking in big, complete sentences and sometimes run-on sentences, actually more often than not? Is that what ends up happening, that they're just communicating too much information rather than paring it down to the absolute basics, and it's just confusing the issue?
Yeah, it's that, and then trying to piece together a sentence under stress, which then the whole body shuts down. As soon as they do that, I see guys, they're running and they're moving, and then when they're going to try to spit out a whole sentence, they're like a statue. They immediately stop because all their brain power is going to put together the sentence. Instead of saying, go left, they're like, George, you need to go left right now because blah, blah, blah. You'll hear guys in training under stress like we do. I'll be like, y'all need to move. If you stand still, you're dead. So move. And you'll hear guys being like, go left. After you go left, I'm going to follow you and come behind you. And it's like, why are you even saying that? But like I said, you revert to the habit that you know the most, which is speaking in full sentences and then trying to articulate all that information into a sentence instead of go left. And the funny thing is, as the training goes on and they learn it, you start hearing guys over the radio, go right. They slowly start to learn that simple information repeated several times, your communication will improve. So you're training with your friends or you're training for yourself, just remember, you got, just like a little kid, you got to say it more than once, and for people to be able to absorb and process that information.
Yeah, I think one other thing to your point about team sports and everything else, and I've run into this a few times, is there'll be a situation and I grab somebody and start moving them and say, go left, and they're not used to it and they want to start asking questions and they want to see where the action is. And you're just like, don't make me donkey punch you and carry you out of here because I don't have time for your questions, just move.
Yeah, that's why in the military, a lot of people think that this military discipline is like shut up and do what you're told. They think, I mean, a lot of it is tradition and it is just discipline, but a lot of it is getting people into that mindset of your platoon leader or your section leader or your team leader says, break left, you just break left. Because that's what you got to do. Yeah. You got to pay attention. If someone's telling you to do something, they're not telling you to do it just for fun. That means there's some dude shooting at you or there's danger or something, or hit the deck. It's like, bye. I think this seems to be more of an affliction of people in their 20s. And adults who have been in high positions in their careers. Yeah, because I remember when I was in Iraq, we had 3 teams. So I'd be like, hey, Alpha team, you guys clean the trucks. Bravo team, you clean the guns. Charlie team, you guys clean the kitchen and prep chow for tonight. And then sometimes I wouldn't write my notes down of who did what. So I'd do it the same thing the next day. Sometimes some teams would do the same thing 3 times in a row. They're like, Roger that. You just did it. It doesn't really make any difference. I remember the first time someone said, hey, we cleaned the kitchen yesterday. Why do we have to do it today? And I almost lost oh my gosh. You could have ran a city off of all the steam coming out of my ears at that moment for like a month. It made my head explode. Going back to the first thing I said is getting outside of yourself. You have to stop thinking, oh, me. It's anything that you do in life is a team effort. So you have to kind of get outside of that. And I don't know, I blame the public school system with their memorization and no critical thinking, which we're going to hit on that too. Yeah.
What do we got next on the list here?
Oh, we'll go, since I already mentioned it, learning how to make a decision.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Under stress, people, they're like, it's the whole, stuttering thing, or when you're younger, first talk to a pretty girl, you're kind of like, It's one of the reasons why, like a lot of the social dynamic and the pickup artist stuff works is they tell you what to say and what to do in a situation. Those are probably some of the worst ones where you have canned answers whenever you're talking to girls, but that still transfers over to what I'm talking about, which is being able to analyze the situation, and having a set way of making the decision under stress.
Mm-hmm. Which, as far as the pickup stuff, and for long reasons, some people know on the show, some people don't. But to explain that, that was the exact same reason. If you're there and most of the words coming out of your mouth are canned, the reaction is not canned. But what it's doing is the same thing. It's freeing your mind to start paying attention. Because you don't have to think about, like the same thing you were talking about. You start trying to think of whole sentences and people go still. They stand there in the middle of a fight or whatever. And it's the same thing there. Your mind is freed up to then appreciate, analyze the situation, and actually pay attention to how the other person is reacting to what you're saying and what you're doing.
Sure. And one thing I've noticed is when your mind starts thinking, your legs stop moving.
Mm-hmm.
If you're standing still in a gunfight, you're dead.
Mm-hmm.
So these are the things but one of the best, most simple ways, like if you're in a high stress situation, something's happening, you see either you're walking with your family and you see some guy and he's having a fist fight with a mailbox because he's a crazy person. You're in a 7-Eleven, you see 3 shady dudes walking in. Or, in our cases, we're running a clinic and I see a van pull up and the suspension is pressed down. This is even more important when you lack experience in that situation. Now, if you've been 100 times a van with the suspension compressed down pulls up beside you, like I have, then I immediately know what to do just from experience. Or if you're a cop and you're off duty and a guy comes in a 7-Eleven and he looks like he's going to rob the joint, you basically know what to do because you have a ton of experience. But lacking that experience, even if you do have experience, if you have a very simple protocol to go to, this is what I need to do to decide what I do next. And from all the different ones, they're complex, logical problem-solving matrix and the scientific method and critical thinking, but we're not trying to cure cancer. We're just trying to get out of a bad situation or decide what to do when you pull up and you're supposed to meet your team somewhere and nobody's there. Instead of going, you got to be able to say, okay, A, B, C, D, E, what do I do? So the best one I found is called the ODA loop. It's used a lot by the military, and now it's being used more by the private sector. But it is basically a decision cycle. Each letter, OODA, represents an action to make a determination what to do and how to act in the best possible way. It's created by a United States Air Force colonel. His name is John Boyd. Anything John Boyd writes or read or has commented on should definitely Google and check out, because everything he's a part of is very, very good. One of the most important parts of it is the ODA loop approach favors agility over raw power in dealing with human opponents in any endeavor. So this is even more important for small groups of people, which is most likely what you're going to be with it if it's an emergency situation, whether it's weather or civil unrest or some of the other things that we've gone with, to some more higher levels of things like being overseas or being on a unit that's a small fighting unit. So it's specifically designed for one person or a very small group of people to use to immediately make a decision over what they should do, especially against a larger force.
Unpack that a little bit as far as walk us through a little bit more like how it works.
Sure. ODA loop, like I said, each letter OODA stands for an action that you should take. So O is observe, the second O is orient, D is decide, A is act. I'll go over each of them. It sounds like a lot, and you can Google ODA loop online and see more information, but It's actually very, very simple. The first one is O, observe. You put yourself in a heightened state of observant, but not elevated. You're not like, oh my God, what's going on? You simply take in the information being sent to you visually around you. You observe for threats, not scanning, not looking at like every single little tiny bit. You're simply being aware that the threat exists. Most importantly, the observe is looking for something not in its place. I'll touch on that a little bit later also.
Okay.
So observe. First, you want to observe your surroundings. Where am I? What's going on? What threats am I perceiving? So the first one we had observe, which is basically look around. And then the second O is orient. This is where you analyze the situation. So you've looked around, you understand what's going on through your visual, what you've seen visually and you've heard, and then you will analyze the situation that you're in based on the following information. The cultural environment. Obviously, what's going on in one place is different from another. So if you're in a nice gentrified area, then it's going to be substantially different than if you're at a 7-Eleven on K Street, downtown DC. So it affects how you react. You analyze it based on the cultural environment, which is where you are, your previous experience, what previous experience that you have in this situation. Goes back to the social skills. Everyone has different experiences and has different experience in what you're doing. So some will have more than others. This combined can create a very, very powerful tool to get yourself out of bad situations. Your training, what do you know how to do? Now you can say, well, in this situation, I can just pick this lock and then go through the door and it locks behind me. But if you don't know how to pick a lock, then obviously that would not be part of an option for you. The perceived threats. Now, if the threat is just, this guy looks really shady, maybe he's going to rob the 7-Eleven, to there are 3 dudes rolling in with shotguns, then it's going to be, the threat level is different in the way you would react to that. So you combine the cultural environment, your previous experience, your training, and the perceived threats, and you get all of that information based on the first one, what you've observed, and then that will equal course of actions. Okay, shady guy in the 7-Eleven. I'm in the 7-Eleven. I'm on the nice side of town. It's a sunny day out. Looks like he's going to rob the place. I can, 1, just try to stay quiet and get in the back of it. 2, just start looking at the stuff near the back door. 3, I can just leave the 7-Eleven and avoid the situation entirely. But I still have to get this pack of ding-dongs for myself. So you come up with different courses of action. The next one is D. It's the OODA and the D and the OODA. This is where you decide. D is for decide. What will I do? One thing to remember is this isn't just for the current situation you're in. It's for future threats. And then you reevaluate, will this work? This is both the current threat and future threats. This is one of the things that was important for our teams when we were in Honduras. If there was a situation where one of the MS-13 or Barrio 13 gangs came in, sure, we could get into a big blast out with them and we'd win because we're better. Our teams train and live together. But a week after we're gone, they would come to all those churches and just murder everyone. Yeah. So, yes, we will win this fight, but in a week, 100 people are going to die. So this is not the best course of action. So what's a better course of action? For us, it was have a safe area where we could go and then negotiate. Because luckily in South America, unlike the Middle East, you can buy yourself out of situations. So we changed it to, let's not ever use force if possible. Let's have a backup plan to somewhere where we can hold out and then start yelling, throwing $100 bills out the door and saying, hey, we got a guy in town who can meet you with 10 grand. You have to think about the current and future. The other is, if you're in a really bad neighborhood, but you had to stop there for gas, you shoot some guy inside the store, there's a good chance that it's going to be, hey, this guy is just murdered someone from our community. And now you got 50 people on you trying to get to your car. So you have to say, hey, is this the best decision? So D is decide. It's basically you're creating a hypothesis of what's going to happen. And then you reevaluate, will this work? The last one is act. You initiate the course of action that you have decided is the most likely to end the threat successfully. And at that point, you generally, if you know Cooper's colors, red, orange, white, green. Red is one of the worst ones because you can only stay in condition red for not long, maybe 5-10 seconds. Red is when you pulled your gun and you're firing, basically, or you're actively running from someone shooting at you. Your ability to think and make decisions at that point is gone. But you need to get into that fight or flight caveman mode to get yourself out of the situation. One of the most important parts about the OODA loop is you make a smart decision to put yourself into the condition red. And that's why it's such a good problem-solving technique. And you can use this for anything in life. You're going to go on a trip. You're like, okay, let me use the OODA loop. Let me figure out if all the decisions I'm being made are correct. It sounds like a lot, and that's probably about 10 minutes of talking about it. This takes really a few seconds at most once you start using it.
Yeah, with practice. And, you brought up a really great point. It's something I see constantly that drives me nuts is people failing to consider the results of their actions, which is the future. What's going to happen if I make this decision? What's going to happen if I do this thing? I run into that constantly. It makes me batshit crazy because people will do dumb stuff. And some of it has to do with the thing we were talking about earlier debate, but just all kinds of stuff. And you look at them and you say, How did you not see that was going to be the next thing that happened when you did this thing?
They do not know how to make a decision.
True.
Too many people rely on, I know what I'm doing. I was like, oh, okay, too easy. They use too much emotion when it comes to decision, which is probably why most people in their 20s have a 412 credit record. It's not thinking about, hey, if I'm going to charge this card. Before you use your credit card every time, if you did the ODA loop, you'll be out of debt in 3 years. I mean, guaranteed, because it forces you to think about your decisions. So I encourage people to just Google ODA loop. You can go to Wikipedia, it's got a good page on it. But again, ODA, observe, orient, decide, act. Do this in your personal life, and your life will improve on a level that I couldn't even put into words, really. So it's thinking before you do things. This used to be normal. Before the school started teaching memorization, they used to teach critical thinking.
Mm-hmm.
But it's thinking before you do things. And even more so in a situation where your life or lives of loved ones or friends or just some guy walking down the street will be in threat, is definitely a time you need to think. The other issue when people think is they get all up in their head, they think, they double think, da-da-da-da-da. This is simple. You do 3 things and then you act. It makes making a smart decision very, very easy.
Mm-hmm.
So I use this in every aspect of my life. I actually use a much more complicated version. I think before I act, which has changed my life substantially. I was put into a unique situation when I was in Iraq. Not thinking before you act gets you killed, gets people killed, and the payment for a bad decision is much, much higher in situations like that. So I was forced to learn all this information. I was forced to study, and I was forced to start making wise decisions. And luckily it rolled over to my personal life, which now I'm much more smarter and happier, and I actually have money in my bank account sometimes. So that's the big difference.
Yeah.
Next one. This is one that everyone hates. Failing. Wow. When people in this training class fail, especially when they fail in front of other people, their whole body just, everything shuts down. That's when you start doing that thing again. It's like, why did you do that? Why did you do that? That was wrong. They can't talk. If you can't talk, that means your brain is really in zero mode right there. If you can't talk, then you can't make decisions, then you can't act, and you can't protect yourself or those around you. People generally throughout their lives, because failing is painful, it's embarrassing, there's a social payment for it. People spend a good majority of their life avoiding failure, and especially avoiding failure in front of other people. And the result of that is when you fail, it is such a shock to you mentally and psychologically that it shuts you down, that you're unable to make decisions. You're unable to even physically move at most times. Most people, you're not in a shootout. They're not in a fight, in a situation where they need to get their family moved out of somewhere quickly because something bad's going on. There's an active shooter. There's 100 people on the highway suddenly. And at that point, they will make a mistake because they haven't done it. You will make a mistake the first time you do everything. That's just simply the way it is. But they will make a mistake and then freeze. I've seen this before in guys in shootouts. I've seen it before with business. I've seen it before with dudes talking to girls. They say something dumb and they're like, blah, 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 from then on. It just messes you up. So failing is a way you learn. There's no better way to learn than failing. How did you learn to do everything in your life? From walking to talking to using a computer to anything. Everything starts off, I made a mistake and now I'll correct it. And I think that people have really, really lost that muscle. They've lost that muscle of being able to recover after making a mistake because they stopped using it at about 9 or 11. They just don't use that muscle anymore. And so when they do, it's so atrophied that it takes their entire body to jumpstart that muscle into working.
So do you think this is a generational thing, or do you think this is just part of the human condition?
Yeah, I thought about it a lot. Like some of these other things, especially the social skill parts, that's definitely a generational thing. I think the failing thing is a general thing. Because I looked at myself before I started doing work like this, where now I purposely train to fail. I want to find those mistakes so I can fix them in training so they don't come up in a situation where someone's relying on me or I got to rely on myself to save my life. But most of your life, I don't think that's going to work out. And so you don't do it. Or you do it in a way that is the way you've done it every single other time, even if that way is the longer, least efficient, or more expensive, because you don't want to have to make that mistake, especially if other people are watching. Peers, coworkers, friends, family, this visceral feeling to fail in front of somebody that you know. It's embarrassing. It's upsetting. You're afraid people will look down on you. And so you really do, especially around other people, try to avoid failing in front of someone as much as possible. That's why, like a lot of the special forces training and things like that, they're all about failing and pointing out failures. If you've ever read the book Company of Heroes or Amongst Company of Heroes by Michael Durant, he was a pilot in Black Hawk Down who was captured by the by the militias when one of the Black Hawks went down. He was with the 154th SOAR, the Special Forces Rotary Wing Division. And after every single training session they did, and these guys are brothers. I mean, these guys, Special Forces pilots, they're tight as you can get. They were not allowed or compliment anything good that anyone did during the training. They were only allowed to, this was in front of everyone, and point someone out and say, they were only allowed to point out every single little tiny mistake you made. Even if you put your pencil in your pocket wrong, they would get on you about it in front of everyone. And by doing that, they got that failure muscle so strong, they make a mistake in the field, boom, they immediately recover.
And here all this time, I was mad at my former boss for doing that.
Oh, he might just be a dick. Now, see, well, actually, that does bring up a really important aspect of this. In training and training yourself, or if you're training, like especially the guys on the HACCP team with me, when we point out, hey, you've made a mistake, blah, 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 we're doing it because we honestly care about your skill ability, if not for selfish reasons. I don't want this dude to get me killed somewhere, or because you're my brother and we work together. I don't want you to get hurt, and I want you to improve, and it's my job to help you improve. But one of the other reasons why it has such a visceral feeling for someone to say, hey, you made a mistake, everyone saw it, is a lot of people, especially people who are insecure, some people who maybe lack the EQ, emotional quotient, they do it either to make themselves feel powerful, to shame other people, or because they are not competent in their jobs and what they're doing, and they need to constantly point out everyone else is worse than them.
Yeah.
Or they just don't have any EQ and they don't understand that they're like, you walk into work and they're like your shirt looks like a road map. Why is it so wrinkled? Jeez, did you really want to say? But maybe some people don't have any malice behind it.
Right.
But, yeah, so that's the other reason why it's such a hard thing for people to deal with. But if you don't have that failure muscle strong, I'm talking about guys, ex-military guys who work in like high stress jobs like industrial welding or paramedics that have gone through this training that I've trained with, that when they fail in front of everyone and they hear someone grumble, they can't walk in some situations. They have to just use every bit of brain power, physical power in their body to jumpstart themselves up to get back to that point where they can start thinking. And so, which is where the OODA loop comes in. If you can't think, then use the OODA loop. So how do you practice that failing? It's really not that hard. You do something that you don't know how to do and you won't be good at. One of the things that helped me with failing in front of people is, again, Toastmasters, which allows me to fail in front of a group of people who would then critique me at the end. And it's free. That's the other thing.
And it's usually rated as the most terrifying thing of all things, standing up in front of other people and giving a speech.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've gotten pretty good at standing in front of people now, but I actually just was talking to a couple of my guys because I did an interview when I was in Honduras for a documentary guy, and he showed me a rough cut, and I was like talking, and I was like, oh, it was one of the more painful things I had to watch myself talking, but I wasn't very good with my words, and I was like, you know what? As soon as I get the time, I'm going back to Toastmasters. Going back, be more conscious of how I talk. I said on the previous podcast, Toastmasters and improv comedy class, and you'll be good for the rest of your life. But Toastmasters has the multiple gains of you get to build that failing muscle in front of a bunch of people. You can see 80 people's faces turn sour when you make a mistake when you're doing Toastmasters. And then, but you have to be able to then continue with not missing a beat. You made a mistake. You see people just start shifting and taking their eyes off of you because they're so uncomfortable because you made such a blatant mistake, and you have to keep on going. And that is a powerful, powerful muscle to work on. And like I said, it's free. And like all these other things, it will help you so much in your normal everyday life. So I love things that have multiple use, like a lighter with a flashlight and a penknife and a pair of nail clippers on. I'm
Uh-huh.
all about stuff like that because time is limited and pocket space is limited. So I love things like that. Most of the training I do, I try to say, let me work on more than one thing in this single thing. And most of these are ones. So fail. You got to fail, do it in front of people and be humiliated. And then when you make that mistake, when you drop that magazine, when you're trying to load it and someone's trying to kill your family or your friends, you will not go, because you've seen it 1,000 times in the range. The guy does it. He's like, oh man, he rolls his eyes and picks it up. That's not the reaction you want. The reaction you want is to put another magazine in your gun right away. And so this will help build that muscle. Next one is writing. Some of these guys, they have to fill out, what do you call it? Like security surveys and practice or write me notes. I can't read anything they're doing. I'll tell you right now, if you don't have a good job, and what I want you to do is write down an entire page worth of thoughts on a notebook paper and see if someone can read it. If they can't read it, then I know the reasoning behind many, many problems in your life.
So do you mean like the actual craft of writing, or do you mean like just bad handwriting?
Both. The ability to write in a way that's readable. You need to know what paragraphs are. Apparently, they don't teach paragraphs anymore. Everything's one big paragraph, which makes my eyes hurt. But as you know from copywriting, the longer block of text that you have to read, the less information, and then the more skimming that starts happening.
Mm-hmm.
So knowing how to write a complete sentence, a proper paragraph. It's like I am as dyslexic as a human can get. I can't spell a word over 3 letters, but I've taught myself how to write a paragraph. I will judge you all day and night if you can't write a paragraph. There's got to be a beginning, middle, and end. Everything that you do. If you have 3 paragraphs, the first one's got to be the beginning, the second one's the middle, the last one's the end. I hate when information just stops. But then touching on what you said is, you need to be able to write in such a way that people can read it if you write by hand. I understand now. Somebody told me they don't teach script in school anymore.
Mm-hmm.
That made me want to just jump off a bridge when I heard that.
Mm-hmm.
But fine, you write in block letters like a 4-year-old. It's fine. You can do that. But you need to be able to write in a way that people can read what you're writing. It's the other thing is it's mindful when you do things. You are writing and you make sure and write so that it's clear that people can read it, your handwriting, then you're also thinking about what you're writing.
Mm-hmm.
Just learn how to write. I mean, you're going to have to pass information on to people. Again, if comms is life, and comms can be a pen and a paper. Comms can be a note that you put down, that you write down. So writing, that's the other. Understand basic nutrition. I had to argue with a guy in a class. He was saying that working out at the gym, lifting weights is how he's going to lose weight. And I was like, dude, no, it's your food intake. I was like, your weight is not regulated by exercise, though it does help with your metabolism and things like that. But the majority of it, especially if you want to lose weight, is the food that you put in your mouth. But it's just some very simple things that it's like guys don't know. It's like, hey, you need to take a vitamin every day. Just understanding nutrition enough that will help you be in decent shape. Everyone thinks they're in great shape. And I got guys running 20 feet 4 or 5 times in training and they look like they're going to have a stroke. And they're 26. I'm like, dude, I am 44 years old. People call up and they say, what's your fitness standards for the HACCP training? I'm 44, so you have to be at least in shape as I am. So, I mean, that's pretty much it. And that's not a hard thing to do. I'm an old, broken down man. I got bad knees, bad everything. But people, they think that going to the gym and pumping weights is being in shape. They think taking a Zumba or something like that is in shape. It is not in shape. Being able to dig a ditch for 30 minutes, that's in shape. Those are the muscles that you use under stress. You always hear about guys, like especially a lot of cops and people like that who are big into pumping that iron so they look good and look big, or bodybuilders. I got a buddy of mine who gives me a lot of advice on nutrition and things like that. He's a semi-professional bodybuilder. He lifted up a box from Amazon and like sprained himself because he doesn't use any muscles but the main muscles, the big muscles.
Yeah.
So if you want to be in good shape, you know what? Pick a place in the yard and dig a 2-foot deep hole and cover it up and then dig another one. Your neighbors will think you're crazy. Hopefully you have a big yard. If not that, get 2 cinder blocks and a shelf and put the cinder blocks on the top shelf and then take them down and do that for 30 minutes a day. You must build real muscles in your body. It doesn't matter how you look, it's what you can do. So you don't have to stop eating carbs, but understand what carbs are and understand meat and how to just not be completely unhealthy. If you want to really learn about nutrition and health and working, a guy called Vinny Tortorich. He's used to be kind of a celebrity nutritionist and trainer, but he's the guy. He's like, hey, your kid's having a birthday party. There's cake and ice cream. Eat 10 bowls of it. It's your kid's birthday. Mm-hmm. But on other days off, be aware what carbs are and be aware that there are replacements for it. Mm-hmm. But be in decent shape. It's not only for your own health and everything like that. In a gunfight or a stressful situation, now that the blood is running through your body, every single muscle in your entire body is tense. I don't know. I used to volunteer a lot with people who are MR, mentally retarded. Mm. And it was at a home where they had to live there full time. They needed 24-hour supervised care. Oh, wow. Okay. And some of these kids, all they would do is sit around all day, just their muscles tense. And these kids, if they had an incident, it would take 20 people to hold them down. And that's what's happening to you. You are using, under stress, all those muscles tighten, and you're basically doing squats, 100 squats a second. Stressful situation happens. Mm-hmm. So you need to be in very, very good shape because you're not just doing the activity that you're doing while you're stressed. You're also doing squats at the same time. So be in okay shape and be honest. Again, be honest with yourself. Figure out what kind of shape am I in. All these guys that come, I'm in great shape. I'm running rings around them and changing my magazines and communicating. So be honest with yourself, what kind of shape you're in. Understand basic nutrition.
To touch on one thing that you just said, as far as like people understanding nutrition, that was a while back. I am nowhere even remotely close to the shape I used to be in. But when I was really serious about it and working out with the guys, I never really got into the bodybuilding stuff. I got into the functional stuff just because I had to, because I'd broken my back and had to rehab from that. But it was really interesting. Like all the guys that were like the older trainers that had been like former bodybuilders and stuff that were now like, yeah, no, I don't do any of that crap. I spend most of my time stretching out. I'll go do the yoga. And it was like cardio and stuff like that. And what was it? 80% of your fitness, your overall fitness, is what you eat. It is not the time you spend in a gym. And all of the old dudes were always like, what you eat is everything. And it was interesting. And one of the other things they pointed out was for whenever you're trying to lose weight, you have to run a calorie deficit of like 30. I don't remember it exactly. I think it's 3,200 calories. For every pound you're trying to lose, you have to run a deficit of 3,200 calories. And if you've ever gotten on a treadmill and been there for an hour and you look down at the treadmill and you're like, I only burned 200 calories. That's a lot of time on a treadmill you got to spend to run that deficit. And I think one of the reasons I'm getting on this is I keep having this debate with someone that keeps going, I don't understand why. And I'm like, I can tell you exactly why. It doesn't matter how many laps and how much time you go spend at CrossFit. It's that dozen donuts you slammed the other day, having a donut competition with someone. But anyway.
Yeah. How many construction workers who are working 9 hours, 10 hours a day in hard labor have you seen with just big, fat beer bellies?
Yeah.
I mean, you could literally work out all day long and be fat. The last one, this is the last of all my rants. This is more like a rant show. But out of everything else, in any situation, and this goes out especially to the men listening, have a practical skill and be good at it. Be very good at it.
I love this
one thing that you're really, really good at, and it's practical. I always get a very surprised look on students' faces when they show up for training for HACCP when I say, I will take a guy who is a plumber over a former Navy SEAL any day of the week. Why? I can train a guy to be a shooter and looter in a month. If I got him for 12 hours a day, that's all he's going to do is just shoot and run and train. I can get somebody up to a decent level in a month, 12 hours a day. I can't teach someone to be a plumber in a month. It's impossible. So have a skill that's valuable and then be very, very good at it. There's a confidence that comes with it. You know, a lot of guys, I hear them say, we go back to women, I do a lot on this, but I hear a lot of guys say, women, they only like guys who are rich. It's like, no, they don't. No. They like the traits that a wealthy man has.
Yeah.
Which is usually they are very good at one thing, is either making money or making money off of selling yachts or making money on the stock market or whatever that is. And having that confidence from one thing and feeling it, that will go on to everything else you do, because then you'll know, oh, I'm not that good at this. I'm nowhere good at changing magazines or shooting or being using the OODA loop or being aware than I am at model car building or drone racing or being a computer programmer or any of these other things. Having a good practical skill makes you valuable in emergency situations. You know, like during Katrina, what do you think was more valuable, a plumber or a guy who can shoot?
Yeah.
I think it was a plumber or any of these other things. The other thing is, and I especially tell men to have that practical skill and be good at it, be great at it, and try to make it a skill where you have to use your hands. And all these things combined, this is more of a life thing. It does transfer over to the tactical skills and the emergency skills and survival. But if you're a dude, you should be good at one thing, and you should be good with your hands. Because I tell you, man, it's kind of weird now, but like back when I was in my 20s, like you see a 40-year-old guy with like a 22-year-old girl, and everyone would be like, "Who's that creepo?" Now it seems to be very normal. It's like women, like there's no more social stigma attached to it, which is lucky for me because I'm single and I'm in 44. But one of the things I hear these younger women that I hang out with talk about is guys don't know how to do anything, and women have no respect for them.
You know,
for that.
I'm right behind you in years, and my wife is about a decade younger than me. And that was one day pretty early on. We were talking about, you've met her. We were talking about it pretty early on. We were dating. And she was like, "Oh yeah, guys my age, no, forget it. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know how to fix anything. She said, quite frankly, they don't know how to be a man." And I was like, "Wow, that's pretty interesting."
That's a whole subject right there.
Oh yeah.
Ooh, that's a big one. Let's save that one for another episode.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I fixed. I didn't even know her that well, but I went by her house to do something, and her disposal broke, and I fixed it. And I was in. So, I mean, it's just, and I knew, I was like, "Oh yeah, I'll fix it right away." I had that confidence. It's probably the confidence more than anything. But if you're great at one thing, then you're like, "Man, I can be great at other things." And having those few times a week or a day or whatever where you do something and you look at it, it's like, "Man, that's perfect." Mm-hmm. That is a confidence builder like you wouldn't believe. I didn't have that.
Yeah.
I tell guys I'm very good at what I do with passive and things like that, though. Fortunately, it hasn't really spilled out to a lot of I'm not good with relationships, money. I have to have someone else handle my money.
Those are different skills, James. Those are different skills.
I don't get to see my parents that often. That's bad. So I'm going to end this with a tip, with an actual real tactical training tip.
All right. Give it to us.
All right. Like I said, this is kind of related to failure and all these other things. I have been training because of the work that we do overseas. A lot of especially the handguns we get are terrible. It'll be like a Browning high power from like 1978 and it would be modified. So it's got the magazine removal on the bottom. Like
I hate those. Yeah.
Or Tokarev or something like that. But you know what? If you're in somewhere like Iraq, it's like, well, that's what I got to shoot.
Yeah.
So since this last mission, I have purchased a couple high point 9mm. And I've been training my tail off with them. And the thing I notice is I've started to get really good with the high point. Then I switch over to my Glock, and I'm a god on that Glock. So if you want to get really, really good with your nice brand new Generation 4 handgun with rails and lights and a red dot and all these other things, spend $100 at a pawn shop, get a high point, spend $30 and pick up 10 high point magazines, run that thing every time you go to the range. And then after a few months, bring your nice gun out to the range and you will destroy with it. With that high point, you have to be so conscientious of every little thing you do with it or you're not getting anywhere near paper with it. So that's my point. It's $100. You can get them at a pawn shop. They cost nothing. And they're terrible, man. Like I'd be lucky to get 3 magazines through that mug before I had a triple feed yesterday training with it.
I have never seen that before. That's how do you get a triple feed?
Yeah, it was like triple, and then the magazine popped out from the pressure of trying to shove the other gun, the other one in, and I was like, and so I managed to clear it. But I was like, wow, there's a lot going on, and it like the slide won't. The unfortunate thing about the high point is like the first 500 rounds, it runs great.
Huh.
So you got to get those 500 rounds out then, and don't clean it or anything like that. Well, and then it just runs like terrible, and I swear. It changes its point of aim, like where the bullet's going to go, like every 500 rounds.
What the hell?
The thing is crazy, but you're constantly thinking when you're shooting that gun. It puts the thinking back into shooting. And I've got, like yesterday, I was, the day before yesterday is when my buddy Bear was here. We were out back, we were running, I was shooting that, I was doing fire movement with the high point. And then at the end of the day, I took out my Glock one-handed, and it was ding, 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 while I was moving. So I was like, wow, this is making a real big difference. So there's $100 tip for everyone to make you really, really good with the handgun.
Nice. So tell us a little bit about HACCP. We talked about it a little bit in the beginning, but we hadn't gotten a chance to talk much about it on the show. And I know there's some stuff about it that you can't really talk about publicly, but what are y'all doing?
HACCP, as I mentioned, we're a humanitarian aid organization that we deliver medical aid. The main medical aid we like delivering is dental care, because not many dentists will go out to like a place like Iraq where they got to carry an AK-47 while they're pulling people's teeth. And that's what people need, man. There's nothing worse than having a bum tooth, especially when you're living in a tent and your whole family, half your family's dead. Then 24 hours a day, your tooth is killing you. So we bring dentists, medics. We have a medical director, Dave Hale. He's a nurse, emergency room nurse.
Yeah, he's a good guy. I like him.
Yeah, oh, that's right.
Yeah, we went to the Mobile Scout through. Yeah.
Well, I forgot about that. Then we also provide PSD mission teams, which is like a bodyguard security team for other aid groups and missionary groups, so that they can do their thing without having to worry about being attacked, or they can go to places more dangerous than they would normally go, because they have a professional security team with them. And then we also do more humanitarian aid prevention work, which is training up local forces that are legal standing military forces or police forces in order to give them the skill and ability to protect people so something doesn't happen again. A good example of that is northern Iraq. We help the NPU, which is the Christian militia there. They are officially recognized military force. So we're able to help them now. And what they did, I mean, everyone knows what happened when ISIS ran through the Christian areas. And it was a genocide, if there was ever a definition of one within the last 20 years. And now they formed their own security force, which is the NPU. So we went there, we're training medics because, they don't even have tourniquets. It's just a basic thing nor medical training at all.
Yeah.
So we trained a group of combat medics for them. So what we want to do is help them help themselves. So we won't have to respond to a humanitarian crisis if there's a group of people to prevent it from happening. So we're getting more into the prevention area now. And one of the things is helping the Peshmerga, which is the only group there that protected the Yazidis and the Christians and Sunni. Shia, they didn't care what religion people were. They've been beaten up for so long. They're good people, and they're not going to let other people just get wiped out.
Oh, that's cool.
So we want to help them too.
Mm-hmm. Well, very cool, man. So how do people keep up with the goings on of HACCP and connect with you and maybe donate if they're so inspired? Where do they go?
You can go to our website, which is dvmhasf.org. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, so all donations, material or monetary or tax deductible. Also, you can go to our Facebook page, which you can go to Facebook and just put in HASF, and our page there will show up.
Awesome. What was the website address one more time?
It is dvmhasf.org.
One more time, since we're going to make a joke about the threes.
Okay. dvmhasf.org. And that's, as you can see, we've got an update section there, and all the past missions that we've done, our current missions, and just information. I'm also going to start just writing some articles for fun there too. A lot of people ask about the equipment and gear that we use and things like that on missions. So I'm going to start putting out some more general articles out there just so people can know things like that, because I get like 50 emails every time we do a mission. It's like, hey, what kind of boots are y'all wearing? What kind of shoes are y'all using? So I'll put that out too, because I mean, you're going to pick something, and if we use it, we don't mess around. I mean, we buy one, beat it to death here, shoot holes through it, and then use it again, and then take it with us before we take it on a mission. So it's, I think it's a good place to kind of, if you want some stuff for camping or whatever, you can do. Don't send me messages like, hey, where do y'all buy your machine guns overseas? I don't want to answer.
No machine gun questions. Got it. Note to self.
It's ridiculous. It's like,
Awesome. Well, thanks, dude. As always, awesome to have you on. Good to see you. Good catching up with you. And man, I'm looking forward to the next time already.
Yeah, great. Me too, man. And here's to me being number one again, baby.
There we go.
All right, brother. I see you.
Show notes, links, and resources from this episode can be found by going to intherabbithole.com/E210. Support the show and get great membership benefits by going to itrh.net. The show is supported nearly entirely by listeners just like you. Again, visit itrh.net. Do it today to find out more. With that, we wrap up episode number 210 from the Lone Star State. Till next time, stay safe and sound.